Hello everyone, this is Zoltar and welcome to Offworld Trading Company. And this is a game that just hit Steam Early Access a few hours ago as of this recording. And it's a very intriguing little game to me. It's coming to us from Mohawk Games, which is led by the lead designer on Civ 4. So hopefully it's worth at least a bit of a look. Now, I wanted to post this video quickly, even though I only have a small amount of experience with the game, to try and give people a better understanding of what the game is, because it's a little hard to describe. The best I've heard so far is that it's like an RTS without the combat, but when you say that, people have no idea what you mean because the combat is the core part of an RTS. So to give you an idea, what I wanted to do real quick was hop into a single player game. We're actually going to hop into the second tutorial because I think it's the easiest way to get a real quick look at some of the surface concepts in the game without delving too deep. And it'll probably be the easiest way for me to actually explain it because it's fairly easy and fairly simple. So we're going to be playing the Win is Expansive tutorial, and Expansive is actually a type of corporation in the game. There are 4 of them: Expansive, Robotic, Scavenger, and Scientific. Expansive is the easiest to understand, by far. Basically, you get to take more land as an expansive civilization, or corporation, whatever you want to call it. So, welcome to Mars. Your company has been granted mining claims on Mars. We need to explore this section of Mars, find some resources, then found a headquarters. And we'll be scanning areas and choosing a place to found a headquarters. That's it. Fairly simple start to the game. So let's get through that, and then we'll discuss how we actually go about playing and winning the game in the main part of it, after we get through the little introductory section. So, what we're going to do is we're going to click around. And as you can see, we're just scanning. There are little partially scanned areas where we see there are resources. We can click and reveal those. And we can also scan more outward to see the dark area and see where resources are.
High levels of aluminum found.
So,
medium levels of carbon found.
That is the quick little opener to the game. I've gone ahead and paused it real quick. And basically, all you're trying to do in that section is find a good spot to actually start your game. So what we're going to do right now is we are just going to plant right in the middle of the map here and grab up a bunch of those resources and remove them from the map.
You can count on us.
Now let's take a moment to look at how we actually go about playing the game. As you can see, we've got this giant bit of UI over here taking up a substantial portion of the screen, but that's because it's extremely important. This is where a lot of the gameplay happens, right here. What we have are 13 different resources that we're going to be managing throughout the course of the game, because the goal of the game is entirely the economy side of RTS. We just want to make a lot of money and then use that money to buy out our opponent. Basically, each of us, we have stock. And as you can see, we already have 2 of our stock right here. This is our little bar that measures stock. And if we have 10, then we have all the stock. And what happens is, if anyone gets 10 of anybody else's stock, they acquire all of that person's stuff, and that person is ejected from the game, having failed and had their company get bought out. So the goal is to buy out all of your opponent's companies eventually. That's where the money and the attacking effectively comes in. You just convert your money directly into an attack on basically 10% of their life, if you want to look at it that way. There are some ways to counter this. There are going to be fluctuations in stock prices, but that's basically what it comes down to, is just make more money than your opponent and buy them. So how are we going to go about doing this? As you can see, once again, we've got these resources on the left-hand side of the screen, and we can sell and buy them the whole time. So what we're going to do is we're going to claim land, try and acquire resources, grow our headquarters, and figure out what resources are most needed on this world. Where are other people neglecting? What can be left alone because everybody's making it? We just try and interpret what's going on and then make more than they do. So let's get straight to it. We'll go ahead and unpause here and start building some buildings.
High levels
going to
of
build
found.
a little aluminum mine here, and what this is going to do
Water found.
is after 20 seconds, it's going to start collecting aluminum, and that's just going to go
Levels of silicon
straight
found.
into our stash here. We already have 160, as you can see right here. And we'll do the same with some iron. There are going to be some details I'm not discussing here because that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is just to get a quick little surface look, so that's all we're doing. And then these resources will also interact with each other. For example, steel is made from a steel mill. In order to power a steel mill, to have it function, it needs to be fed iron. And it also incidentally needs to be fed power. So we're going to go ahead and put down a steel mill. And for the moment, it's going to build in 20 seconds. And it likely won't get to work right away because we don't have any iron. So what's going to happen is we put these iron mines up here. They're mining. And they're going to send the resources back to our headquarters. And then it'll just be picked up by the steel mill once it's functional. And it'll start being converted into steel. This is very important because this will allow us to upgrade our headquarters. As you can see, it takes 40 aluminum, 20 steel, and 10 glass to upgrade the headquarters. As it turns out, we have almost 300 aluminum, 300 iron, 43 steel, and 40 glass down here. So we'll go ahead and upgrade.
Morale is at an all-time high.
And this has
Thanks to the
granted us
infrastructure
the ability
boost
to
you
claim
acquired,
more land.
We'll be able to ship more industries
You can see
off-Earth
right
in
up
no
here,
time.
we can only claim 6 more tiles right now. So why don't we go ahead and get to that? We've got iron rolling in, we've got steel being produced. Why don't we make a little more steel? And now, one thing you may have noticed is we are losing power, water, food, and oxygen, and fuel. The fuel is being used by these to carry the iron. So we might want to think about getting some buildings up that will allow us to get these resources. We can build a generator to get ourselves some power. We can build a water pump to get ourselves some water. We can build a farm to use that water and get some food. And we can build an electrolysis reactor. That'll give us both oxygen and fuel, which is very nice. Now you may have noticed I've been placing these things in specific locations. So let's talk about that for just a moment so people aren't too confused. As you can see, these are 3 water tiles. This water tile has 3 dots, 3 cylinders on it. This one has 2, and this one has 2. So this is a high water tile. This is a medium water tile. And this would be a low water tile. Naturally, the tiles with the most of a resource grant you the most of that resource once you've claimed them. So I made sure to get the biggest water tile that was fairly close by. And we'll talk about one more mechanic real quick here. As you can see, I put these 2 metal mines right next to each other. This is because each mine, or each building, that is next to a building that produces that resource, the same resource, receives a 50% bonus per adjacent building. Had the same thing done with the steel mills. They each have a 50% bonus. So it's like I have 3 steel mills and 3 iron mines. I can even do something like put down 1 more steel mill. And that will give, once it's done, a 100% bonus to each of these 3 buildings. So suddenly it's like I have 6 steel mills. It's pretty ridiculous. Let's get back to the actual game. So the goal here, and I wouldn't usually do this early, is to buy stock in Miss Patent. So we're just going to do that. We just click here and bam, we've done 10% of their health and damage. Let's look at it that way. Because we've bought 10% of their stock. Interestingly enough, their stock price has now gone up. And we could potentially sell that stock back and make some of our money back. Not all of it immediately. But if we wanted to later, let's say her stock price doubles, we could sell that stock we have, and suddenly we've made probably about $4,000 in total just off of letting that stock we've had sit there. We can also sell off our own stock, because the game started us with some, to make a little money if we need to. Went ahead and did that here. Shouldn't be too big a deal. Once again, this is just the tutorial. Now, as you can see, we're kind of short on glass right now if we want to upgrade our headquarters again, which is very useful because it lets us claim more land. So we need to either make or buy some glass. In this case, we only need 10 glass right away. So I'm thinking what we'll do is we'll come over here and we will just buy that 10 glass. Now we have the 20 we needed.
With each new
And we can
citizen,
upgrade the
our
headquarters.
domination grows.
And that's most of the basics of the game right there.
Being bought.
As you can see, some of our stock is being bought. It's a very aggressive move by that player, considering our stock is significantly more expensive than theirs right now. And this is simply due to the fact that we have more stuff than they do. And we have very little and, in fact, no debt, which is extremely harmful to our stock price. But, you know, they can do whatever they want. They effectively have done 10% of what they need to do to win the game now. We don't need any more steel mills. We have plenty of steel. Let's start looking at actually getting some resources out. We're going to need even more glass to keep expanding. And we have some silicon, which is what's needed to make glass. If I hover over the building, you can see we need both oxygen and silicon to make glass. But that silicon, 40 silicon, isn't going to last forever. And even though we can just keep buying it to keep the glass rolling in, it's probably better to go ahead and just put down a silicon mine. Now I've placed it here because, as explained before, adjacent buildings give bonuses, and there are 6 spots here. This one is the best initial tile, and then there are plenty of places I can also grab up to get bonus resources. So we'll maybe throw down 2 silicon mines. That'll give us quite a lot of silicon. And another glass factory for that bonus. So it's like I have 3 glass factories once these are all up and running. And we'll just see if we can make a little more money to buy plenty of stock. Go ahead and buy just a little glass. Get our upgrade going right now. And we have so many claims, we really need to start spending them.
We'll be able to ship more industries off Earth in no time.
So, for example, let's just make sure we've got plenty of water. As you can see, power's not going for that much, so we won't worry too much about keeping our power high. But water is kind of expensive right now, because water costs 33 each, and food costs 28. But water doesn't directly convert into food at a 1-to-1 rate. It's 1 water per 6 food. So water is either really expensive or food is really cheap right now. So maybe grabbing up a little extra water is not a bad idea. In a very similar way, we can see that steel is actually a little bit on the expensive side, because steel directly converts into iron at a less than ideal rate. I believe it takes almost 3 iron to make 1 steel usually. Now we're getting around that due to all of our adjacency bonuses. But we have a lot of steel, and it's worth quite a bit, more than anything else except for electronics. So maybe we'll sell off a fair amount of that steel, make some money, maybe make some stock purchases real quick, and see about getting up some more production buildings. As you can see, we've got plenty of silicon rolling in. Even with the glass factories, we have extra silicon left over. So why don't we throw up another glass furnace? We need a little bit of carbon for that. We'll just buy it in this case. Make even more glass, because glass is becoming more and more valuable. This isn't surprising because many, many buildings require glass early on in the game. So as the initial rush is happening to claim land and get up buildings, glass will be quite valuable most of the time. Our water price is jumping even higher, so it's probably a good idea to jump on that and keep the water rolling in. We'll go ahead and sell some of it off. And as you can see, selling off that water significantly reduced the price, because what happened was the general market that we are all interacting with gained a lot of water. And so, you know, simple supply and demand. There is now more water out in that market, and so it's not as badly needed, and they're not willing to pay as much for it. And that's just going to be a consistent interaction throughout the whole game. Go ahead and upgrade one more time. We have so many claims, we should just go ahead and start really throwing down stuff. We can maybe try and make some chemicals. So what we're going to do is we're going to throw down a carbon mine, or a quarry if you want, right here. We threw it down on the 3 because, once again, that's the most valuable. And we're going to throw it down right here as well, right next to it. So that'll give us quite a bit of carbon rolling in, and we'll be able to use that carbon and the fuel that we're making from our electrolysis reactor to make chemicals. Just buy a little more carbon for the moment so we can go ahead and throw down a couple labs. One more thing to note quickly here is that all my buildings are connected. This is because as long as the building is connected to headquarters, resources will just be immediately transported rather than having to be carried around on these blimps that we see, which cost us fuel. We really don't want it to be costing us fuel now because we're using that fuel to make chemicals. Let's go ahead and sell off a significant amount of glass, a lot of steel, a lot of aluminum because that price has dropped up, or popped up quite a lot. And I think that may actually be enough. Let me see real quick. Yes, we can actually complete our buyout at this point. As you can see, this plus button has gone from blue to red, indicating that we can click it, and we will buy out the opponent, gain all of their stuff, and in this case, because they are our only opponent, immediately win the game. Now, there is a lot to Offworld Trading Company that I didn't cover in this video, but hopefully you can at least get an idea of how an RTS game would function without combat. And what I'd like to do now is I'm going to be making several more videos in the next few days that'll kind of go into a little bit more detail for people who are interested in that. So, and also the game includes a nice stats screen at the end where we can just look at some basic concepts that happen in this game, including like resource graph. We can see that the power and water here, we can see this was probably, we can see our oxygen graph here. Usually this is a little more detailed and easier to understand, but once again, early access game, not for everybody. Just be aware of that. There are issues. There are plenty of issues, trust me. But hopefully that'll be a nice quick look at the very basics, and we're going to go more in-depth in later videos. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you guys next time.